So welcome to the third day of Selenium C# training. So today we'll be discussing the concept of the interfaces. What is an interface and how do we use the interface, where we will be using, how it will be using in Selenium. We'll discuss that today. Alright, now in the last class, okay, let me just open my Visual Studio. Now in the last class we had discussed how can we configure Selenium in our project and how can we open the three different browsers, that is your Firefox browser if you want to open Chrome browser and the IE browser, right? So for all these browsers we have different drivers, that is Firefox driver, Chrome driver class and Internet Explorer driver class. Now the question which arises over here is, everything has a driver, whether it is your Firefox driver, Chrome driver, IE driver, Opera driver, Safari driver, everything has a driver, right? So will you be learning the driver classes separately? Say suppose if I have to work upon only Firefox browser, then will the commands and the approach be different than if I have to work on the Chrome browser? Will I have to create the object of each and every driver class separately? What if a single script I want to run on multiple browsers? Then how can you do that? So this is addressed under the concept of interfaces. What we say interfaces. Alright, for example, say just taking the general example, if I go to a bookstore, then we see the front and the back cover of the book, right? And then say for example, if I go to a restaurant as well and I need to order the food, so I'll just check the menu, and then I'll order the menu. Now how the food is going to be, how the food is going to taste, menu is like an interface which tells what that menu is offering to us. Similarly, interface describes what the project will do, what all commands and features will be there in project, will be coming under the concept of interface. Alright, so did you get what is an interface? Say for example, if I go to the official website, that is seleniumhq.org website, and I go to my documentation of C#, I open the API docs, right? Now out here in this documentation also we have many interface listed over here, right? Say you can just take, say suppose I take the example of say mouse interface. I go to this mouse interface and it says that this particular mouse interface, it provides the methods representing the basic mouse actions, right? Basic functions like click, context click, double click, mouse up, mouse down, mouse move. These are all the operations, these are all the functions, the methods which are present under the mouse interface that can be done with the help of this mouse interface. Okay, so interface name is mouse only, I is just the convention that we use in C#. If you have an interface, if this mouse is an interface, then we just append it with an I in the front. Okay, that is the naming convention for an interface. Alright, so for example, we have seen this mouse interface, that is what all functions will be provided by the mouse interface. How it is implemented, we don't know anything. We just describe the functionalities and we'll be using the click function or the context click or the double click function. The basic code, the code behind all these functions we don't know, and we need not to worry as well. Alright, so interface helps you know what the system does. For example, the keyboard provides you an interface between the buttons. You press the buttons and something happens on the screen. How it is all happening, we don't know anything. Similarly, in C# as well, we have some interface. For example, let's create a new project. I'll add a console application. Say this is your third day project. Alright, so we have the console application. Now I need to add an interface in my project, right? So how will you add? You say right click on your project add new item, and then we need to add an interface, right? So I told you what type of an item you want to add. According to your requirement, you can just add any of the item that you need, okay, from this add new item dialog window. So like say suppose I add an interface, for example it's an phone interface. Okay, I add phone. Now what is an interface? Well, in an interface there is only function declaration, no implementation is there in an interface. You only declare your functions, you don't implement those functions in an interface, right? For example, what all features will a phone have, right? Like say we have a phone has the property of calling, right? So I have a function void call function. All right, I have a function call function. Similarly, it also has one property of texting the messages. So these are the two properties what a phone will offer to us, call and the text function. So what will happen is, if a layman looks at this code, he will easily understand that what a particular phone is offering to us, that is the call and the text functionalities, right? So now first point, as I told you, is in an interface you can only declare the functions, you cannot implement the functions. For example, right, say for example if I try to implement my call function, then we can see an error coming up. It says that phone.call, the call method that you are using, interface members cannot have a definition. You cannot have a definition in an interface. Okay, you cannot define the methods in an interface, so we need to just declare the functions only. All right, then secondly, you cannot print anything in an interface, right? We cannot write we cannot write console.writeLine in an interface, since like we cannot implement these functions. Then how can we print anything? Say for example, like in order to print anything we need to implement it, right? Say I'll implement and then I say console.writeLine. I cannot do this stuff since we cannot do the implementation, right? So this is another point. Then the next point is, there is no public access specifier defined in an interface. The members in an interface are public by default only. If you say public, if you say public void call, then we cannot do this. We get again one error. It says the modifier public is not valid for this item. You cannot specify public in an interface. The methods are by default public only in an interface. Okay, fine. So this is another point. And then next, there you cannot declare the fields inside an interface. Like for example, you want to declare a variable, say int x is equal to 10. We cannot do so. It says interfaces cannot contain fields. As we can do in the class, we can define the variables, we can declare the variables in a class, but we cannot do so in an interface. Okay, you just have the function declaration, no implementation in an interface. You can just declare the functions only and nothing else you can do. All right, okay, now say I have a class. All right, I'll add a new class.
Gunjan, a quick question.
Yes.
I understood interface, you said like we cannot implement or we cannot write inside the interface, just declaration of function. But like if you not declare or if you not write anything inside that, like what is the use, where we'll use that?
We'll see. I'll tell you everything. It's just the introduction. You see, I'll cover all these topics. What is the need of an interface? Okay.
Okay.
Just have patience. Yeah, fine. So okay, so I have declared an interface, phone interface. Now say suppose I have one class with me, Nexus class. All right, I'll add a new class, Nexus class, in my project. Now we have this Nexus. We know that Nexus is a phone, right? So Nexus phone, this phone will also have the functionality of calling and texting inside it, right? Okay, so what we do is, like say suppose we know that Nexus is a phone and it also has the functionality of calling. So what I'll do is I'll declare the two functions, public void call. Now this is a class we can implement the functions, and we can have the public access specifier also defined with the functions, right? Now similarly, it also has the functionality of texting, right? So we'll also declare the text function in this Nexus class, right? Now say suppose I have one more class with me, that is your say iPhone class. Now iPhone is also a phone, so it also has the two functions, call and the text function, right? Call and the text function will be present for the iPhone class as well. So what I'll do is I'll be adding the call and the text function again in my iPhone class. Now say suppose I have one more class with me, say Sony class or Nokia class or any other class. Those are also the phones next. The Nokia is also a phone. Sony is also a phone, right? So all these classes will be having the call and the text function declared inside them. But then don't you see this code is becoming redundant, declaring the call and the text functions again and again in each and every class, right? But like we have already declared the functions call and the text in the phone interface. Then what we can do is we can simply implement this phone interface in the class which require these two properties. So this will help remove redundancy in our code, right? So this is what is the advantage of an interface. Alright, so now what we will do is, instead of declaring the two functions again in my Nexus class, what I'll do is I'll implement the phone interface. Okay, now I have implemented the phone interface, but still I am getting the error. Nexus does not implement the interface member phone.call, and Nexus does not implement the interface member text member. That is, now what the error says is, whatever function you have declared in your interface, those functions have to be implemented in the class which is implementing that interface. That is, you need to now implement those functions. That this interface is having. That is, we will have to implement the call and the text function in the class that is implementing your phone interface. Alright, so suppose I'll print anything over here, say Nexus calling, okay, and out here I say Nexus text. Alright, so I implement the two functions, call and the text, and now the error has resolved. Alright, now iPhone is also a class, like it is also a phone, so it will also have the call and the text functions. So rather than declaring these two functions again in my iPhone class, what I'll do is I will implement the phone interface, right? I'll implement the phone interface, and then like either you can just write the functions, implement those functions manually, or else if you just hover your mouse over this phone interface, we get this yellow bulb down arrow, you click on it and then you say implement the interface, then automatically all the functions will be implemented, right? So out here I'll write my own logic, say iPhone calling, and similarly iPhone text. Okay, so I implement my functions accordingly. Now what we have done till now is, like we have one interface, right? We have a phone interface. Now this phone interface has two functions declared inside it, the call and the text function declared inside it, right? And then what we have is, we have two classes with us. There is one Nexus class and another is your iPhone class. Alright, and the two classes, since these two classes are implementing the phone interface, so then both these functions are present in the Nexus and the iPhone class as well. That is, now Nexus class will also have the function call and the text function. Similarly, the iPhone class is also having the call and the text function declared inside it, since both these classes are implementing the phone interface. So both these functions will automatically be accessible in the two classes that are implementing the interface. But then what is the need of declaring this phone interface? We can directly create the two functions in the Nexus class. Why we have declared this phone interface? What is the need? We can simply remove this phone interface, right, and work with the classes only, the Nexus and the iPhone class, and then just declare the two functions inside it. What is the usage of declaring the phone interface that we have declared, and we are just declaring the two functions? Now the reason is say suppose tomorrow if a new class comes in, for example Samsung class. Right, now Samsung is also a phone. It will also have the functions of call and the text, right? So it will also have the two function, call and the text function. So if this class implements this phone interface, then automatically it will be understood by the layman that fine, it also contains the call and the text function if this particular class is implementing the phone interface. So rather than creating the same function again and again in all the classes, we can create in one single interface, okay, and all the classes will simply implement that interface. And implementation will be different. The way Nexus calls, the way iPhone calls, like these are different. The functionality is different. iPhone calls in a different way and Nexus calls in a different way, right? But the name of the functions will be same in the class which is implementing an interface. The function name will be same in all the implementing classes. Alright, so similarly we have interfaces present in Selenium as well. For example, we have seen an example of the mouse interface. Right, there is a mouse interface which describes the common functions provided by, like what all functions we can perform with the help of this mouse interface. And the most important interface in Selenium is your WebDriver interface, which we will be using in our entire class. WebDriver interface. Okay, WebDriver interface, all the driver classes, that is whether it is your Firefox driver class, Chrome driver, IE driver, or it is your Opera driver, Safari driver, all the driver classes are simply implementing this WebDriver interface. You see that this URL function, yesterday we had discussed this example of like when we were initializing the Firefox browser. Say suppose I want to navigate to any URL, then I was calling this URL function. Similarly on the Chrome browser, again I want to navigate, so again call the URL function. Similarly in the IE driver also you'll call the URL function in order to navigate to a particular URL, right? So from where is this URL function coming? You see that this URL function is actually present in the WebDriver interface, and since all the driver classes are implementing this WebDriver interface, that is why you are able to access this URL function with all the driver classes. Okay, alright, so I am saying that all the driver classes are implementing this driver interface. Well, we cannot see that thing written in this C# documentation, but if you see your Java docs, say I open the Java docs, I'll show you. Hold on. You have the WebDriver interface. Okay. Yeah, so you see that all the known implementing classes are these all classes: Chrome driver, Edge driver, Firefox driver, IE driver, Opera, Safari. Or you see all the driver classes are implementing this WebDriver interface. Fine, so we'll discuss this WebDriver implementation also in Selenium. Alright, so that we discussed, that the example was of the URL function that we just saw in the documentation. Alright, now coming to the usage of the interface. As I told you, the first usage is functions are same in all the implementing classes, right? We just saw all the function name will be same in all the implementing classes which implement that interface. All right, now for example in the Selenium also we had seen the WebDriver interface, the URL function that we had just seen, right? WebDriver, yeah, the URL function, you see the function name is same, URL function, the function name is same with all the classes which are implementing that interface. All right, now say for example, let's take an example. Say I go to Yahoo Mail. Okay, now what you have to do is your script is you have to enter your username and password and log in into your Yahoo Mail. Okay, this is your script that you need to execute with the help of Selenium. Fine, so let's see how can we execute that. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll add a new class, say Yahoo class it is. Okay, and I'll add a main function. Okay, now what is your script is, what you have to do is you have to log in into your Yahoo Mail, right? This is your script, and this script you have to run in all the three browsers, Firefox, Chrome and the IE browser. So how will you do that? That is logging into the Yahoo Mail in all the three different browsers. Fine, so what we will do is, like, say I'll declare a variable named browser and say I want to execute it in the Mozilla browser. So I'll say I have this browser initialized to Mozilla. If you want to run it on the Chrome browser, you can give the value as Chrome as well, or if you want to run it on IE, then we give the value as IE, right? So I check over here that if the browser, if it equals Mozilla, right? If it equals Mozilla, then what it should do is it should simply open the Firefox browser, right? So okay, let me add the WebDriver DLLs inside my project. Okay, I'll install it, the latest only it's getting installed, 3.8. okay, it has been installed successfully. Fine, so then after that I'll just initialize my Firefox driver class. I'll import the class using openqa.selenium.firefox. say fd is equal to new Firefox driver. Okay, so if the browser is equal to Mozilla, then it should initialize your Firefox browser. Else if the, what is the issue? I say else if the browser equals Chrome, then it should initialize your Chrome driver. Fine, so I import the class for this as well. openqa.selenium.chrome, say cd is equal to new Chrome driver. Okay, and do I need to give the parenthesis? Yes. All right, and then else if the browser equals IE, then it should initialize your IE browser, right? So I'll initialize my Internet Explorer driver class. IE is equal to new Internet Explorer driver. Alright, so what we are doing is, according to the type of browser that we initialize in this variable, it will open the respective browser. Alright, then after we open the browser, what we have to do is we have to navigate to the Yahoo Mail, right? So I say that like if the browser is Mozilla, then it will first of all open the Firefox browser, and then after that you will set the URL, that is fd.url is you give the URL you want to navigate to, right? That is to this Yahoo login URL. Okay, similarly if the browser is Chrome, then it will first of all open the Chrome browser, and then after that it will navigate to your login URL on the Chrome browser, and similarly after opening the IE browser, it will navigate to the login URL of the Yahoo on the IE browser as well. Alright, so we'll write fd.url, then cd.url, and then ie.url again in all the classes, in all the if else if statements, right? And same goes for the username as well. Now after I navigate to this particular login URL, what then I will do is I will be entering my username, then I'll click on the next button, and then I'll enter my password, and I click on the login button, and I'll be logged in, right? So same thing will be doing for all the else if statements. If the browser is Mozilla, it opens the Firefox, it navigates to the URL, then it will find your username field and it will enter your username. Similarly the same thing will be doing over here as well for the Chrome browser, and same thing will be doing over here for the IE browser as well, or else if you have any other browser, you will be doing the same stuff again in all the else if statements, right? So don't you think like this, writing this same piece of code navigating to the URL again and again we are writing in all the else if statements? So how to resolve this issue? We'll be doing this with the help of an interface. We'll just see. So coming back to our phone interface, let's first of all see how can we apply this logic, like how it is being implemented in the C# language, and then we'll come back to our example, the Yahoo Mail example. Okay, now for example, coming back to this phone interface, I have a new class with me, or else I have this program class. I'll rename it to say test phone class. Okay, now this has the main function inside it. Alright, now what we will do is let's say we create the object of the phone interface. Phone P is equal to say new phone. I create the object of my phone interface. Alright, but then we are getting the error over here. What the error says, it says cannot create an instance of the class or an interface phone interface. Now the rule number 1 is you cannot create the object of an interface, since interface is nothing, it's just a skeleton. As you see, if you see your interface, we are doing nothing inside an interface, we're just declaring the functions. What will you achieve creating the object of an interface? You will achieve nothing, right? So why to create the object of an interface? Rather what we will do is we will create the object of the classes which are implementing the interface, right? So then only we'll be able to call the call and the text functions, and accordingly we'll access the functions. Alright, so what is the need of creating? There is no need of creating the interface object, right? So what we do is rather we create the object of the classes, that is say Nexus n is equal to new Nexus. I create the object of my Nexus class, and then now I am able to access the call and the text functions declared inside my interface. The class next call and the text function. Alright, I can access the functions of the class call and the text class. Similarly I can also create the object of the iPhone class as well. iPhone say I is equal to new iPhone. Alright, and similarly I can access the call and the text function I dot it's I dot text function. Alright, and then I write console dot read key, and let me just comment this main function. Okay, and let's say if I execute it. Yes, Alexi, you want to ask something?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Whenever we're accessing the text and call class, are those class interface classes or those in iPhone and Nexus method? I
Mm-hmm.
mean methods, yeah. Are those methods from interface or those methods from iPhone and Nexus class?
Yes, like you say, you are creating the object of your nexus class, nexus n is equal to new nexus, and then we say n dot call. So that means we are calling the call function from the nexus class. And when I say I dot call, that means I am calling the call function from my iPhone class. I is my
Right.
reference to the phone of iPhone class, right?
Okay, so it's we're not calling methods in interface, those that are in interface.
I didn't get you actually, sorry.
Like in interface, that was the interface, the phone interface. We have two methods,
Yes,
call and text, right? Are
yes.
we calling these methods, or we calling methods in a Nexus and iPhone class?
Like you see, I told you that the two functions, the two methods that you are declaring in an interface, these two methods are being implemented in the classes, in the two classes, Nexus and the iPhone class, right? So call functions and the text functions are same as you have declared in your phone interface. It's just that the implementation is differing in the two classes, but the methods are same as
Right.
you have declared in your own interface. So when you call, when you say I dot call or when you say n dot call, you are actually calling the call method from the nexus class over here, and over here you are calling the call method from the iPhone class.
Okay, got it.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so as we see in the output as well, it says Nexus calling Nexus test and iPhone calling iPhone text. Alright, so the way the two phones Nexus and the iPhone are calling, they might be different, but the function name has to be same in the two classes. Call in Nexus and in iPhone. The function name is same, but the implementation might differ in the two classes. Alright. Okay, so I told you there is no need of creating the object of the interface, so that is why we are creating the object of the two classes which are implementing the interface, Nexus and the iPhone class. So how have we created the object? Nexus n is equal to new Nexus, right? Or else we can even create the object of the two classes like this as well. Say phone P is equal to new nexus. Now this is another way how you can create the object of the class nexus class. Now actually what is happening is over here what we are saying is we are saying phone is an interface, right? Interface, and this P is the reference, right? So this is the reference to your phone interface, and that is pointing towards the object of the nexus class. When you say new nexus, then only you are creating the object of the nexus class, right? So out here we are creating the object of the nexus class, and then this object of the nexus class, where like what is pointing towards it, the reference of the phone interface is pointing towards the object of the nexus class. So this is another way of creating the object of the nexus class. So now what is happening is, let's say we have this nexus class, right? We have this nexus class. So now earlier what was happening is n was pointing towards the object of the nexus. This is your object of the nexus class, right? Earlier by declaring the object of the nexus class like this, you were saying that n is being pointing towards the object of the nexus class. But now what is happening is you have your nexus class. Now P is pointing towards the object of the nexus class. This is your object of the nexus class, and now P is pointing towards the object of the nexus class, and this P is the reference of your phone interface. This is the reference of your phone interface. Alright. So P points towards the object of the Nexus class, which is actually your phone interface only. Alright, now what is the difference between the two methods? Why, like when to use, what is the difference? Nexus n is equal to new nexus and phone p is equal to new nexus. By this way, like both the ways are used to create the object of the nexus class only, right? But like over here, now when you create the object of the nexus class with this first method, you can call all the functions of the nexus class, say call and the text function. Now say for example, I have one more function defined in my nexus class, say public void Google features function. Alright, and out here say I print anything in my Google features class. Now Google features is a function which is present only in the Nexus class. This function is not present in my iPhone class, right? So that is why this Google features function I have declared in my Nexus class only. This function I haven't declared in my interface, because interface you will keep only those methods in an interface that you think will be common to all the other classes as well. I told you that like the way the Nexus calls, the implementation might be different in the implementing classes. Alright, so over here, so we can say that now the implementing classes has to implement all the methods that are declared in an interface, plus it can have its own additional methods as well declared inside. It's not necessary that Google features function have to be declared in the interface, then only we can implement it in the Nexus class. It's nothing like that. Okay, Nexus phone has to implement, if it is implementing an interface, it will have to implement all the methods. So it will have all the methods of the phone interface, plus it can have its additional features as well. Alright, so this is again one more property. Fine, so coming back to our main function. Okay, now the difference between, now out here, as I told you, when we are creating the object of the Nexus class in this way, I can call all the functions of my Nexus class. Similarly, I can even call my Google features function as well. But then when I create the object of my Nexus class like this, you say p dot call function from the Nexus class. Similarly, I can access my text function from the Nexus class. Similarly, when I try to access the Google features function, I cannot access it. I cannot access it. It says that phone does not contain a definition for Google features. Since what we are saying is the reference of the phone interface is actually pointing towards the object of the Nexus class, and phone interface is not having the Google features method declared inside it. So that is why you cannot access the Google features method if you are declaring the object of the Nexus class like this, right? So did you get the difference between the two methods? By declaring the object like this, you can access all the methods of the Nexus class, but if you are declaring it in this way, then we cannot do so. We will get the error. We cannot access all the methods of the respective class if we are creating the object like this. Alright, similarly, we can even you can even say phone p is equal to new iPhone. You can even create the object of the iPhone class as well in this way, right? So phone p1 is equal to new iPhone. Alright, or else what we can do is, like say we have phone, say x is equal to null. I initialize it to null initially, okay, and then I say x is equal to new Nexus. I create the object of the Nexus class, alright, and I can similarly create the object of my iPhone class as well. Sorry, it's x is equal to new iPhone. Alright, and then you can access the two methods, x dot call. If you want to access the call method from the iPhone class, you say x dot call, and similarly you say x dot text. You can simply access it, the two functions of your iPhone class like this. Alright, so this is how you work with the interface. Now coming back to our Yahoo example, I'll uncomment this. Okay, Now, as I told you, writing the same piece of code again and again in all the else if statement, right? Now, so how can we do it? Like, rather than declaring the Firefox driver, Chrome driver and IE driver, what we do is I will initialize my WebDriver, WebDriver interface. I'll have to import the class using openqa.selenium. So WebDriver driver is equal to say null initial. Okay, so I initialize my driver into WebDriver interface driver, and then instead of creating the object of the Firefox driver, what I say I'll say is, if the browser is equal to Mozilla, then your driver that will be initialized is your Firefox driver. Alright, and then will not do it like this. I will not do it like this. Okay, so I say that if the browser is Mozilla, then it should initialize your Firefox driver. So you are creating the object of the Firefox browser only actually, right? But then now the reference of the WebDriver interface is being pointing towards the object of the Firefox driver. Similarly, for the Chrome driver as well, I'll say if the browser is Chrome, then it should initialize your Chrome driver, and similarly it should initialize your IE browser if the browser equals IE. Alright, and after we are done with opening the browser according to the requirement, okay, then after that we can simply say driver.url. Driver.url is you navigate to your login URL. Okay, so then you see that you need not to write the same piece of command fd.url, cd.url again and again in all the else if statements if you have a number of else if statements. Okay, so according to the type of browser, it will initialize the respective browser, and then after initialization of the browser, it will navigate to the URL, and then after that it will find your username and will enter the data into the username field, and so on. So you need not to write the same logic again and again. Similarly, if you want to print the title of the web page, right? I say print the title of the web page. So how do you print the title? Driver.title. Okay, and let me write console.read key, and I'll comment this main function. Okay, fine. So if I run my code, I say that my browser is Mozilla initialized, right? So it will initialize your Firefox browser, and then it navigates to your Yahoo URL, right? And then if we see in the console output, hold on, it's still running. Okay, and then you see it prints the title of the web page as well, Yahoo login. The title is Yahoo login. Alright, so this is how you can execute your same script in the different browsers. Fine. So identification of the after navigating to the URL, what you actually have to do is you actually have to enter your username in this field. So that we'll see in the next class. How can we first of all we'll have to identify this username text field. So how will you identify it? How will you identify the text fields? That we will see in the next class, and then we will enter the data into the text field. Okay, so this is how we work with the interface. So we are just initializing the WebDriver interface, and since these all classes are implementing this WebDriver interface, that is why we need not to create the object of the Firefox driver or any other or all the driver classes again and again. Alright, and yes, right now we are hard coding this browser information in our script in this particular script only, but in the coming classes, as we go with the framework, we'll see how can we actually read this parameter from some external file. Okay, that is if you want to read it from the Excel file or any other file, how can you do that? That also we'll see.